Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It is April 17th, Thursday, when I'm recording this. We do have the market closed on Friday, and so it's going to be a nice 3-day long weekend for us. I hope you guys be able to take some time away from the markets and just enjoy a little bit of time off. So we got that going on. This is going to be the class list. You'll notice there are a few more names that I just want to be talking about and showing you guys out there. Also, since I'm recording this right after the market closes, Netflix earnings coming out. It's not really doing anything right now. I'll kind of keep an eye on it and see if there's anything notable about that. And then, yeah, so this is what we're going to be looking at. And then let me show you a couple things because we've made some really, really good, great, fun trades out here. And some of them, like you can see here, this has been both directions on the S&P. So this one, I think I showed you guys last week, but man, look at this. This was on the 14th and that we closed this and we closed it for 64% gain. And what we did is we actually put this thing on the Wednesday morning before the Trump tariff pause news came out. And we sold a put credit spread. I think we sold it for about $10.50 and we cashed in for $3.75. So that was a fantastic one. Let me show you what that looked like down in here. So if we kind of zoom in this, ignore the Fibonacci levels for now. I'll get to it in a second. But basically Wednesday, after right here, basically when the market did a double bottom and didn't react to the extra China tariffs that were put on the midnight before, when it did all this, I said, it looks to me like the market wants to go up or at least not go down anymore. And so what we did is we sold a 5,200 put credit spread. I didn't know that the market was going to jump up so quickly, so I gave myself plenty of time. But man, within a couple hours, we totally nailed it, and it went exactly to my target. I was expecting 5,400, and it went even just beyond 5,400. So that was pretty crazy to see. So yeah, we did that, and then we sold it, bought it back, basically exited here. So from here to here, we made 64% on that put credit spread. And then because of the Moxie patterns and everything that I teach, I was expecting the market to pull back. And what was nice is that worked out pretty well. And we had, a couple things that greased the wheels. So we basically shorted the market here, right here. I think that was on Tuesday, because again, technicals and the Moxie patterns and everything that I was seeing said that we should be pulling back. And so we put on a call credit spread up here. And then you know what happened? NVIDIA news came out about their limiting exports, that kind of thing. And so that got the market down overnight. And then Jerome Powell came out and started speaking, and he wasn't too rosy about things. He was kind of actually stark warnings about some stuff. And so that helped push the market even further. And I tell you, it went exactly where I was looking for that day. I was expecting it to take a few more days. It happened in about a day and a half. And so you can see here that nailed it. S&P to the hourly 50. That's where I thought price was going to go. That's exactly where it went. And so we cashed in the call credit spread for 38% for our final exit on that. It took about 1.5 days. So yeah, talk about timing. That was pretty great. And so between 38% and 64%, I think that comes out to 105, if I remember that correctly. And basically, so we went long here to here, and then we went short from here to here. We have been playing this market each way, up and down, and it has been working out very, very nicely. So, and you can see actually the Fibonacci's that we have here, one of our subscribers in the central room was talking about this, and he said, because I was saying, hey, we should probably go to the hourly 50, maybe something close to the 5,200. And he said, oh yeah, look, so the 50% retracement. And so I put one on, and whether you pick it here or pick it here, whatever, close enough. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, that looks about 50% retracement. Look where it went. Right there. So that was the low yesterday, and then it actually got bought back up pretty strongly by the end of Wednesday, because today's Thursday. Now today was a sideways day. There were some options expiry. I think the market was a little bit oversold from yesterday. You can see here we ended like this, a little bit of a pop up, and the market basically just kind of drifted. Really not much. The internals were pretty well. The internals were actually slightly bullish, but the market was very neutral. It's a Thursday going into a 3-day weekend after the market pulled back Tuesday, Wednesday. It totally makes sense to me that the market was really just going to rest today. So that's what we were expecting, and that's what happened. And so that's nice. And so if this can hold this area, I want to see if next week, if we actually start moving up. I know that maybe it seems like there's a lot going out there. And if you guys heard Jerome Powell, he was pretty harsh about some stuff. And, who knows what's going to happen over the weekend. But I'm leaning towards this being the low, basically this being the low, and I think we're going to start working our way back up a little bit like that. And so we have some positions on, we have some targets, and that's what I'm looking for. So yeah, that's my idea, and I think we're going to start kind of coming up a bit. I don't know how quickly or how bumpy of a ride it's going to be, but that's what I'm looking for is a reversion to the mean on the daily chart. Okay, so let's get back to the class list. Here we go. So the S&P, let me pull this back down here for us. And if you look at the NASDAQ, it's going to be basically the same stuff, just different numbers. But yeah, same thing. We pulled back to just below the hourly 50. I think that's going to be I think these are going to end up being pullback buys. We'll have to see. Again, it's a little bit too early. Didn't expect much today. So we're going to have to see how the weekend holds up. And then we'll have to see if we get anything coming into next week. And then if we look at the IWM, kind of the same deal. I think a lot of these things are really, really smashed. I think the market is so smashed that we're actually going to start moving back up because I do think we have some good news out there with the tariff pause and some other stuff. At least the bad news, I think, is probably factored in at this point, and I think that the market's just down so far that nobody else is. I think the short side is too risky. And then if you look at the IWM, I mean, look at this. It's actually maybe got a little bit of relative strength because it perfectly bounced off the hourly 50. We do have the Moxie indicator firing. And look at this. It's generally up and held up today. So, that's looking pretty good. So I'm looking at this and I think this is going to hold and we start moving back up like that. So IWM's looking pretty decent. And as you guys see, I put RSP in parentheses because I'm seeing that RSP, which is the equal weight of the S&P, is looking an awful a lot like IWM, and you can see here it's holding up pretty well, isn't it? We had a little bit of a pullback yesterday, and then we kind of came up here, and I'm going to see if we're going to start kind of clawing our way back up to the upside. I'll show you some stocks that are giving me an idea of what can happen, where I think things are going to go. So that's the RSP, and then let me just jump to it. If you look at the $SPXA50R, which is the 50-day SMA breadth, I'm also seeing similarities here. You guys see this configuration here on the hourly chart? That looks exactly like the IWM and the RSP and all that kind of stuff. I know the S&P is down here, but if you actually look, again, let me kind of jump around a little bit. So I do think we've come down like this. I think we bounce, I think we pull back, and then I think we actually go higher like that. I'm seeing some divergence here, price down, Moxie indicator level. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I want to see if these things can hold and start moving up. Now, here's the thing I want to point out. You notice that the IWM, the RSP, and the 50-day SMA breadth all pretty much look the same, don't they? They pulled back, came back up, and they're really just kind of sideways like this. Whereas the S&P and the NASDAQ are down here, aren't they? Well, check this out. If you look at F&GA, which is the leverage ETF of the FANG stocks, can't you see? Same thing down here, isn't it? And if you look at Tesla, again, I know I'm kind of jumping around. Look at where it is, down here. And if you look at MAGs for the Magnificent 7, where is it? Down here. So what this is telling me is that I'm seeing a divergence between the S&P 7, the Magnificent 7, and the S&P 493. So it looks to me like the rest of the market is actually fairly strong because the rest of the market, if you look at the 50-day SMA breadth, the IWM, the RSP, they're all up here. But the MAG7 are down here. And so I think that this is telling me that, again, I think that the low is in, and I think that the rest of the market is up here stronger and ready to go. And right now the weakness is in the MAG7, and I think that they're actually going to turn around and play catch up. And part of the reason they might be down is because of the option expiry and maybe some other stuff and just kind of what's going on there. But I think that's what's going to happen. So let's see if this video and what I'm saying ages well into next week. And if you look at the Dow, you can see the Dow is kind of the same thing with the rest right there, down below here. But I'm kind of looking at this as a retest of the low area. I want to see this hold, and I want to see if this can move back up. If I'm wrong about all this, gosh, then we're going to keep coming down like this. We'll kind of maybe come up, and then we'll just keep going lower. So yeah, if I'm wrong, we keep going lower. If I'm right, then this is baked in, and we go higher. And if we look at the SMH, which is the semiconductors, you can see I've been drawing a lot on this and everything. this pretty clearly right here was the top from Tuesday. And it was part of this thing and part of these configurations that I was looking at along with NVIDIA. And I said, hey, I think that this is going to pull back to here, which is exactly why we got out of our long and we went short by basically selling a call credit spread. And man, did that work out so well, especially with the NVIDIA news that came out, the export news and all that kind of stuff. So I think these things are getting a little bit manipulated and pushed around a little bit like that and, coming down like this. And I think I want to see if we start moving up to the upside. So that's my idea in through there. I showed you guys breadth. That's about what I want to show you was the 58 SMA breadth and how that looked. Let's look at the put call ratio. And you can see we are also extremely high. It can go a little bit further. Maybe there's a little bit of a bounce there. Maybe that's the top or something. But I think we need to also acknowledge that this is in an area that if the market were ready to go up, I think this would suffice because the 10-day moving average of the put call ratio is now pretty close to 1. And I think this is at least putting in a low. Now, I'm not saying that this is the low. I am prepared for the market to move up, run into some resistance, and then I'm going to have to reassess, and maybe the market comes back down, and maybe we go into a full-blown bear market and we roll over and all that kind of stuff. That's totally possible. We are trading this one move at a time, and right now I think that the next move is going to be up, and we'll have to see what happens to this. The put call ratio can fade off a little bit and then come back, and that might set us up for a move up and then back down. That's okay. I'm only trading the next move that I see, and I think that is to the upside into some overhead resistance. So let's see, that's SMH. And then if we look at the UVIX and VIX, this is another thing that's kind of giving me the idea and directions that I want to see. So everyone in the Moxie room knows that I was talking about this and saying, hey, the UVIX looks pretty stretched to the downside, and I think it's likely to bounce. And lo and behold, what did we get? What was it? Wednesday. We got the bounce. We exactly got the bounce. So we actually cashed in half of our FNGA because we were expecting things to pull back and this to bounce and all that kind of stuff. And I figured that this was going to come up into the moving average here, run into resistance and move down. So it's a little too early to determine right now, but if I am correct about this, then I think that this was a move up into resistance, and I think this is going to continue to fade lower. So if that's true, then the market's going to go higher. And what we will see is that price will fall off of the daily 21 and it'll start heading towards the daily 50. If that happens, then the S&P goes higher, maybe towards the daily 50. So we're going to have to watch these things as an interplay. And that's what I'm thinking is a little bit bump up, and I think this is actually going to go lower. So that's part of the reason also why I think that the market's going to go higher. So then you come over here and you look at the VIX, basically tells me the same thing. I don't see anything bullish on the VIX. In fact, we had our blow off top in through here. We called the negative divergence in through here. You guys can go look at my X profile and everything. You could see there was a double top and negative divergence right there, and that was the beginning of the market moving up. In fact, that was coming into the Trump tariff pause news. So we nailed it. And we came down, had a little bit of a bounce, but now you look at this, and doesn't that look like a downtrend? This looks like a downtrend to me. And it looks to me like the price is going to fail the daily 21 and probably head towards its daily 50. So again, I think most things are getting ready to start moving to the upside. Let's take a look at some individual stocks. Now, if we look at FNGA, it's going to be the same story as the indices, right? As we kind of talked about, I'm looking for this pullback to eventually get bought up. If it is, we have an L shoe here on the daily chart. We have a trampoline move here on the hourly chart. So we can't confirm it yet, but I think that's what's going to be happening. And then if we look at Tesla, talked about this too, and I know it's kind of looking weak, but again, I think this was a weekend going into a 3-day weekend. Some options were expiring, and I just don't think anybody wanted to really get in here, as far as big money, to really get buying on these things. But if you look at the move yesterday, big waterfall. What did it do? Bought back up. So I'm looking at that and saying, I don't think that's too bad. So let's see if this comes down. I look at this and say that retested a low area, because you see that, retested a low area. And now I want to see if it starts to move up. Earnings, I believe, is Tuesday after the close. And so we'll have to see if the market actually shapes up a little bit on Monday and maybe gives a little bit of a clue as to which direction Tesla is going to go. I normally don't like to hold through earnings. This one I might. We're holding TSLL. And part of the reason that I'm thinking that this might be okay is I'm seeing a lot of volume come in here at the lows. So that could be interesting. All right, and then if we look at Bitcoin, let's do IBIT, because I like looking at things with regular trading hours as opposed to the futures. My eyes are more familiar to it. And what I'm noticing in through here is that price made a lower low, Moxie indicator is making a higher low. And so that is the divergence that we look at. And I'm also noticing here, notice how Bitcoin price is actually staying elevated pretty well, especially compared to the S&P and the MAGs that are down here. So this also goes along with what I'm looking at and thinking that the rest of the market's already up here waiting to go higher, while the Magnificent 7 came down here, and I think they will eventually catch up like this. I know people are looking at, wow, couldn't try that one right, MSTR. And I mentioned this one, I think, in a couple videos ago. But you look at this, it's actually done a really good job holding lows, even though the market went lower. This thing basically double, triple bottomed in through here, and it's also holding up very well compared to what the market's doing. So this looks pretty good, maybe a little bit more bull flagging, but I think it looks like it wants to go higher. So yeah, if the market's going to go up, if IWM, if the S&P, if these names are going to go up, then Bitcoin's going to go up. Okay, Bitcoin's not going to go up by itself, and Bitcoin is not related to gold or anything else like that. Oh, speaking of which, let's talk about gold for a hot second. Just as a contrarian idea, the gold really, I forget where it ran, but basically gold started this last run when the market started to roll over and the tariff news and everything else like that happened. What if gold is actually being used as a hedge? Of course, it's a flight to safety, and yes, uncertainty, and yes, it's been doing its own thing. And of course, it has not been correlated to the S&P. That is the whole point of why people are investing in it, because, well, it's going up and the market's going down. What if this thing has served its purpose for now? And basically, right as gold has a blow off top, what if that is also the spot at which the S&P starts to turn around and equities actually become more desirable? It seems to be a thing that would line up pretty well for me for what I'm looking at. And so I just have this thought out there, and we'll have to see if this works. But if gold tops out and starts to come down and the market bottoms and starts to go up, boy, that would make a lot of sense to me, especially if gold was kind of being used as a hedge, as a flight to safety. All right, and then if we could look at Reddit, I'll show you guys some examples as to why I think that the market's going to be working up, because I was prepared for this kind of pullback in through here, and it has happened. And now we see here, once again, prices getting back up over the 15-minute 50. This is a potential trampoline move on the hourly chart, and this looks like a pretty good bottoming pattern on the daily chart. And in fact, if we look, here, I'll move this out of the way, but if you look, where did Reddit go down to? Filled the gap. So now I think it's kind of recovered, and I think we could actually see a bit of a move to the upside. So what I'm seeing out there are lots of stocks that look like they are in bottoming patterns right in through here. And so I think that is also helping to demonstrate that the market could be ready to go up. And if we look at OKLO, same kind of deal. I'm seeing lots of divergence. Notice that price is down, Moxie indicator is up. A little bit of a dip, pretty muted though, just a little bit. And if that works out to the upside, that's going to be a trampoline move. And you can see here that OKLO is right on the daily 200. So I think this is maybe hammering out a low, and maybe we get a move to the upside. If we look at Nike, I don't know if I'm going to trade Nike or anything else like that, but it is part of the whole tariff thing, because I believe their stuff is in Vietnam, and Vietnam said yes, they will drop their tariffs and all that kind of stuff. A lot of volume came in on this at the lows, and I know it hasn't exactly turned up yet, but if you kind of look at just how these things move, look at how price came down, got smashed, hold, spike. What if we're getting the same thing here? Came down, got smashed, hold, spike. If for nothing else, just a reversion to the mean. Okay, from being very oversold, spike, and we're seeing it because now it's starting to get over the hourly 50, and the Moxie indicator is about to fire over zero. So if something like this interests you, then hey, maybe there's a play here for you if you want to do something with Nike. How about SoFi? Big moves down, right? Well, what do we have? Well, we've got this big move down here, and now it's recovered. And now you look here at the hourly chart. This is very similar to what I showed you with IWM, RSP, the 50-day SMA breadth. What are we seeing? Prices over the hourly 50 and looks to be holding. In fact, that looked like a pretty good day for SoFi, wasn't it? Even though the S&P is down here. And if you look at the hourly chart, price down, Moxie indicator up, Moxie indicator green. I think this is going to start holding the hourly 50. And if it does hold and the market goes up, then this could go up like that. I don't exactly know where, but I do think these things are going to start moving to the upside. How about Palantir? Maybe a little bit obvious or given that this thing could work out because it's a pretty strong name and it definitely held up while the market went down. But I was talking to the subscribers yesterday and we had a lot of people asking me about Palantir. And I said, well, first of all, I'm expecting the market to pull back, like what the market did on Tuesday into Wednesday and then today, Thursday. And I said, okay, for that reason alone, I'm not really wanting to go buy things because I think that the market's going to pull back and most likely names are going to pull back too. I also said Palantir is right here at a double top. And I also said, if you look a little bit closer, I said Palantir has not tested the hourly 50 yet. Well, look what it did. Just tested the hourly 50. That could end up being a buy the dip situation right in through here and then move up. So remember, guys, if you like what I'm saying here, if you like what's happening and pointing out, remember to hit the like button on YouTube and come over into the Moxie room. This is the kind of stuff. I'm on the mic hours every day, an hour each day, and I'm on hours every week. And we talk about this stuff. And I give this kind of guidance live to people so that you can actually see what we're talking about. And I caution people from getting long Palantir right here. And I said, wait. And I think that's your answer right there, is that pullback. And now we see if this pullback kind of comes in and actually looks like something good on the daily chart, and you can trade the leveraged ETF of Palantir if you want. So really, if you guys find what I'm talking about interesting, remember, hit the like button, come over into the Moxie room, go to simplertrading.com/Moxie, and come on in, and then you guys can see this. And then let's look at Crowd, and then I'll show you guys Netflix since it just had earnings. And Crowd was basically the same thing. Maybe a little bit less of a double top, but you could kind of say the same thing. I know it's a little over, but same kind of deal. I said, hey, I don't want to go long here. I don't want to initiate because I'm expecting the market to pull back. And Crowd, just like Palantir, hasn't touched its hourly 50. Look what it just did. Pulled back to the hourly 50. So if you were interested in buying it, I think at least that's better. I definitely wouldn't have wanted to do it 2 days ago, but I think down here is a little bit better. And now we see if this overall double bottom can actually maybe have some legs and start moving to the upside. All right, so let's take a look at Netflix. A lot of people are talking about Netflix today because of earnings. Generally speaking, I think it was looking pretty good too. I know that it hasn't exactly tested the hourly 50, but maybe this little dip was close enough. And then also you got to give a little bit of leeway because earnings, anything can happen for earnings. So I'm going to give this one a little bit of fudge room. So let's take a look and see what actually happened. Hey, not too bad. Okay, my understanding briefly was that they beat their numbers, and then it was really then up to guidance. Now, I assume it looks like guidance was at least acceptable because now price is up here. So, hey, looking pretty good, right? So I think this could help bode for the near future. If Netflix was able to hold and move up, doesn't Netflix look like Palantir and CrowdStrike and all this other stuff? And it's one of the Magnificent Seven, so maybe it's going to help demonstrate that the market can go up and that some earnings are actually decent. Or if they're bad, maybe they've already been factored in. I don't know. I don't trade earnings for the most part. And so we'll see. But the fact that this is up, hey, that's great. And we'll see if that can help carry the market a little bit into next week. So yeah, and hope you guys enjoy that. I'm going to get out of here for the weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.